Hello, everybody. In chapter one, we're going to be talking about e commerce and the revolution that is just beginning. So, let's do a quick discussion here. The new face of e commerce. Have you ever used Uber or any other demand service companies? Think Uber, Uber Eats, Lyft, anything along those lines. What is the appeal of these companies for users and providers? And then, are there any negative consequences to the increased use of on demand services like Uber and Airbnb? Me personally, I have used on demand services such as Uber. When they first came out, I thought it was a really cool concept, especially because oftentimes before Uber, getting a taxi cab could be very difficult. Even if you called, sometimes it would take up to a half an hour to an hour to even get a taxi to come and get you, and then you had no idea where the taxi was at that point. So with Uber, you could just pull up the app, request it, and then you could follow exactly where they are to come get you. So I mean, I definitely think that is part of the appeal, of these companies is you're able to easily track some of these companies. If you do use something like an Uber Eats, figure out exactly where your food is. Obviously, if you're using Uber Eats, you're very hungry. You want to get your food as quickly as possible. One of the most frustrating things in the world is, waiting for like a pizza or maybe your Jimmy John's, having no idea where it is, and it's been 2 hours. On these demand services, like I was saying, the overall appeal of it is just knowing, exactly kind of what's going on, having everything kind of at your fingertips, and having just more power associated with it. So, as far as negative consequences to the increased use of it, when like something like Uber and Airbnb first came out, I mean, they were very revolutionary type of programs. Slowly but surely, they became easily accessible to everybody, so everybody's starting to use them now. So I think that's just kind of got a little more congestion towards it, to where at first you'd be able to get an Uber fairly quickly just because there weren't a whole lot of users of it. Initially I think in college when I first started using Uber, you could get an Uber within 5 minutes, it seemed like. But now everybody's kind of using Uber, and sometimes it can take a little bit longer. To now we're almost kind of back to where we were with the original taxi idea, or the example that I was using, to where sometimes it can take up to like a half hour or something like that. But the good thing about it is you're still able to kind of see where they're at, and they're able to contact you as well and say, hey, I got caught in traffic or something like that. So there's a lot, it's a lot user friendly than compared to like the traditional kind of taxi cab. But overall, they're still kind of learning their way on it. For the first 2 decades of e-commerce, that was just kind of the beginning of e-commerce. A lot of rapid growth and change into it. You've got this great new idea. Just kind of putting pen to paper at that point. We've got technologies evolving at exponential rates. You've got disruptive business changes. Going back to our original kind of example there of Uber. Just kind of how much disruption that they had in the marketplace. You've got new opportunities, all sorts of new ideas coming to life. So, why study e-commerce? So it's just, understanding opportunities and risks, analyzing e-commerce ideas, models, and issues. Overall, I think e-commerce has, a bunch of potential ahead of it. Even though in the last, I would say, 5 to 10 years, there's been a lot of ground that's been covered. There is still, a lot of potential with it. The sky is still the limit, so to speak, when it comes to e-commerce, just because so much more is being done on the internet and, through mobile technology, such as apps. So, if it's something that you're really interested in, e-commerce is kind of a cool thing because it kind of covers business, and it also covers technologies. So you can kind of if you're wanting to go more of maybe like a computer science degree with like a minor in business, e-commerce would kind of be a perfect fit for you. So just kind of an introduction here to e-commerce. So the use of the internet to transact business, that includes web, mobile browsers, and apps. And more formally, digitally enabled commercial transactions between and among organizations and individuals. I originally remember kind of growing up, this kind of new idea of e-commerce, with companies like eBay. That was really big kind of growing up. I remember always like buying baseball equipment on there because you could get at a pretty cheap price. But especially with the expansion of like a company like Amazon, it's just continue to grow and become a bigger thing. So the difference between e-commerce and e-business. So e-business is just the digital enabling of transactions and processes within a firm involving information systems under the firm's control. So that does not include commercial transactions involving an exchange of value across organizational boundaries. So overall, e-business, not necessarily working on transactions, whereas e-commerce is more focused on those transactions. So some of the building blocks of e-commerce. So you do have the internet, which is kind of like the building blocks of everything nowadays. It seems like the World Wide Web, whether it be HTML, you've got the deep web, or versus the surface web, and then you do have mobile platforms such as mobile apps. Um, so another class discussion here. So, will apps make the web irrelevant? What are the advantages and disadvantages of apps compared to the websites for mobile users? What are the benefits of apps for content owners and creators? And then, will apps eventually make the web irrelevant? Why or why not? I don't think we're ever going to get away from websites. I think a lot of websites are a lot more functional than apps, and vice versa. Just because people do go, bounce back and forth, whether they're on their desktop computer at work and going over to their phone. I mean, there's a lot of things that you have to do, on an actual desktop computer. I mean, let me use like Excel for a example. There are Excel apps that I can use on my phone, but I would much rather use an Excel spreadsheet on my computer, just because I have a bigger area to work. It's easier to navigate through. So that's just kind of one example of why I would prefer like personal desktop in those situations. But as far as a mobile phone goes, I think there is still a lot of advantages to having apps, just because you can have a lot of information just in one place. You don't have to go out there and kind of sift through different websites trying to find it. Apps such as like Amazon, or even like a Walmart app. You can sign into it, be logged in at all times. You can surf through everything. Maybe you have orders that you're going to be making each week on those websites, especially with Walmart. They more recently just rolled out their online grocery shopping and pickup. So doing things with the apps for those can be very convenient. That way you can do that pretty much anywhere. So whether you're sitting on the couch, or maybe you're out to lunch with somebody, kind of hits you, be like, oh yeah, I need to do that really quick. You just click on your app. You're able to make the order right then and there, and then within a couple of hours you're able to go and pick up your groceries. So I think there's advantages and disadvantages to websites, or more traditional websites through desktop computers, and then also apps. But I think it just kind of comes down to a little bit of personal preference as well. So you might see like somebody with an older generation who probably prefers websites a little bit more, whereas a younger generation might be a little more app oriented, just because they kind of grew up using more apps than that older generation. So some of the business trends in e-commerce. So all forms of e-commerce show very strong growth. Technology trends include mobile platform has made mobile e-commerce a reality, and then societal trends include increased online social interaction and sharing. So I would say just the trends that I've seen over the last 10 years. It was probably about 10 years ago now that I first heard about mobile commerce in mobile platforms, and the amount of data that's out there now to support mobile technology is just astonishing. It's come such a long way in the last 10 years, and I mean, it's kind of crazy to think that it's only going to get better, just because it has come such a long way. Even 10 years ago, when you kind of look at it and say, BlackBerry, that was kind of like the gold standard for cell phones, and now you look at something like a iPhone, or maybe one of the Google phones, Android, whatever you're using at the time. They're all a lot more user friendly, but just the technology behind it is just so much better than that original BlackBerry that was out there. So some of the unique features of e-commerce technology. So you've got ubiquity. Excuse me. So that's just kind of meaning that e-commerce is kind of everywhere. You do have a global reach to go along with that, so you can do business pretty much anywhere throughout the world, just as long as you have internet access. You've got universal standards for it. Information richness. So we do have a lot of information out there. So you might have one app that's a little bit better than the other app, and you can always go back and kind of research it a little bit more and try to figure out, how can I make my app a little bit better to compete with the other guys. Interactivity. So just overall interaction, with websites, and especially with social media presences, which we'll talk about here in just a second. It's a lot easier for companies to interact with their customer base and kind of find out exactly what they want. Information density, just another point to make that there is so much information out there, and it's very easy to get that information. Personalization and customization, just as I was saying a second ago, to where you can reach out to your customer base and figure out exactly what they're wanting, and then you can personalize products exactly to them. So that's a pretty cool thing. And then social technology, as far as social media, that's become such a big thing now, to where some of the biggest websites right now, such as Facebook, Reddit. That's another really big social, website that a lot of people don't talk about. But a lot of people do end up visiting that website on a daily basis, and they're becoming a little more, ad driven on that website. So lots of different features of e-commerce. So a couple of the different types of e-commerce here. So we've got business to consumer, and remember these terms because we will use these terms later on in the semester. So business to consumer, that's going to be B2C. You've got business to business, which is one business selling to another, and kind of go back to the business to consumer. That's just essentially like buying something from, say, like an Amazon or a Walmart or something. And then you've got consumer to consumer. Think eBay on that. If you're doing like an online auction, or if you're selling something on like Craigslist, that's going to be a consumer to consumer. Mobile e-commerce, or m-commerce. This is just doing interactions, through your phone, which a lot of us, might be doing with things such as, Apple Pay, Google Wallet. You got social e-commerce, Facebook Marketplace is a really good example of that, and then you've got local e-commerce. So if there's anybody locally who's doing, business strictly online. So just some of the growth that's been happening in e-commerce over the last 25 years or so. So starting in 1995, you can see that's in $0 right there, and then over the years now we're in 2019 here, so just short of 2020, where we're just over $1 trillion being done through e-commerce, and then it's projected by 2022 be $1.5 trillion in revenue generated thanks to e-commerce. So like I said, a huge thing. And even the last, I was talking a couple of minutes ago, in the last 10 years, seeing a lot of advancement in it, where, we're 2019, I'm thinking in 2009 range, where, you can see they were probably about just over 250, billion dollars. And then now, we've almost gone up $1 trillion over in the last 10 years, and as far as revenues go. Growth for business to business in e-commerce. So this is in trillions. So starting in 2002, just almost a $2 trillion there, and then now we're up to almost $6 trillion, and then by 2020 we're projected to be just over $7 trillion. So businesses, much like consumers, are doing much more online, just because it's more convenient for them, and it's much more effective and efficient for those businesses. The growth of m-commerce in the United States, starting in 2012, revenues are pretty small. Now in 2019, we've got revenues of about almost 350 billion. It looks like there, and projected to be just over 600 billion in 2022. So m-commerce is definitely a growing technology that's not going away anytime soon, especially with more reliance going to mobile phones, to where you can pretty much do anything and everything on your phone now. So, obviously, if I wasn't teaching online here at Lincoln Land, I probably wouldn't even own a personal computer, just because I can do so much with my cell phone, and then whatever I can't do with my cell phone, I can just do with my work computer. So just a brief history, into e-commerce here. So we do have some precursors, so kind of some, systems that kind of help to kind of pave the way. So we do have the Baxter Healthcare modem-based system. You've got order entry systems, electronic data interchange, or EDI standards, and then we have French Minitel. And then starting in 1995, that kind of got the boom going here. So you've got the invention. So the sale of a simple retail goods. Back then there was limited bandwidth and media, so didn't have a whole lot of opportunities back then. And then you started having tons of visions for friction-free commerce and then first mover advantages. So if you were one of those first companies to kind of come up with the idea of selling things online, that definitely helped out with you. Think like Amazon, they were kind of one of the first ones. eBay, and not to say that these were one of the first ones, but they were one of the first ones to do it successfully and continue to be successful throughout the years. So then you do have the dot-com crash of 2000, where a bunch of people were pumping money in a lot of these websites. Then you had a bunch of just kind of junk websites that weren't performing at that point. In 2000, the bubble bursted, so it kind of weeded out some of the weaker of the websites, and then kind of left us with what we have today with some of these strong e-commerce websites. 2001 to 2006, we have consolidation, so emphasis on business-driven approach. So they kind of took those original kind of e-commerce ideas where it was maybe a little more tech-driven at that point, and then started putting more of a business approach on it. Meeting deadlines, having more of a budget, not going outside of that budget, and then focusing on coming back with a profit and good returns at that point. So traditional large firms expanded presence. Initially Walmart, they were just focused on that consumer interaction within their stores. Then they started to notice a little bit more and more people are starting to do things online, and they're still behind places like Amazon right now, just because they weren't one of the first movers when it came to e-commerce. They're slowly catching up to them. And I would say, Walmart, they're still a bigger company than Amazon, so I mean they can pump as much money as they want to, in their e-commerce division as they want to, and I still think, at this point, Amazon's still going to have the edge just because Amazon was that first mover on it. So, startup financing kind of shrinks in 2000, 2006. Just kind of the reason behind that is just because of the bubble that happened in 2000, where a lot of people were a little more scared to start pumping money into some of these e-commerce companies. You've got more complex products and services sold, online. You've got growth of search engine advertising. From originally you've got Google, who you could go onto Google, search anything, and you never saw any ads. To where now, if you search anything on Google, you're going to see quite a few ads. They're also going to take your data, and sell it, other places. And then you've got business web presence expand. So might have 2000 and before, a lot of places might not even had a website, and then 2001 to 2006, more and more places are starting to have a website, and more so even now, especially having websites that are very customer oriented and very user friendly. And then 2007 to kind of now. So we've got rapid growth of Web 2.0, including online social networks. So just kind of the boom that we've seen in companies like Facebook, Twitter, even like more of a business professional kind of network, such as like a LinkedIn. You've got mobile platforms out there, local commerce, and then on-demand service economy. So think about like Netflix and everything that you can kind of have just at your fingertips anytime right now. Same way with like an Uber. Entertainment content develops as source of revenues. So kind of going back to the like a Netflix, or even like Amazon now, Amazon Prime, they have a lot of television shows. Hulu, that's becoming bigger and bigger just because the networks kind of got together, teamed up, and said we need to try and stop what Netflix is doing. So a lot of people started going towards more of a cutting the cord and going that route on it, and then just transformation of marketing. So just trying to figure out, people aren't watching TV as much. They're not reading as many like newspapers and everything. So how can we reach out to these individuals? So doing a lot of advertising through social networks such as Facebook, Twitter. Doing a lot of data mining, figuring out exactly what everybody's searching for, and then having pop-ups on different web pages and different things like that. So some of the periods of development, in e-commerce. 1995, we've got the invention, so we've got, retail, we got the crash here in 2000, then from, 2000 all the way until about, 2007, we've got consolidation, so you got the retail services, and then from 2007 on, we've got the reinvention, so just kind of a good graph here to kind of show you, the upward trend of retail, services kind of flattened out a little bit, and then now we're seeing, from 2010 on, we've got content, which is starting to see a little bit of an uptick on that one. I would imagine we'd probably see an even higher uptick if we went from 2018 to, see what projected might be in, 2020, 2022 and onward. So assessing some of the e-commerce, so we do have, stunning technological success, early years, a mixed business success. So a few early .coms have survived. We do have, online sales growing rapidly. Many early visions not fulfilled, so just price dispersion, information asymmetry, and then new intermediaries. Some of the other surprises, so you've got, fast follower advantage, so not being one of those kind of first movers on things. So fast follower, those are kind of the companies or individuals who kind of wait back, see a little bit, see what the market's going to do, and then once somebody else kind of tests the waters, then they're kind of the first one to follow on those. So you do have a lot of startup costs associated with this. Impact of mobile platform. I don't think anybody 20 years ago would have predicted exactly what would have happened with mobile technology, but like I've said here in this chapter, it has gone just all over the place. And then you do have the emergence of on-demand e-commerce. Some of the organizing themes here, so we do have technology, so just the development of mastery in digital computing and communications technology, just the overall business, so new technologies, present businesses with new ways of organizing production and transacting businesses, just kind of new ways of thinking for those businesses, and then society, intellectual property, individual privacy, public welfare policy. So individual privacy, that's a really hot topic right now, especially with, so many data breaches. Facebook is a really good example of that, and just kind of figuring out, these social networks, are they going to take any responsibility for, leaking out some of your data? And it's not just the social media networks. It's pretty much any sort of website that's out there. Google, they're kind of taking a back seat to Facebook just because Facebook seems to be getting most of the news nowadays. But they're just as guilty as Facebook whenever it comes to that. So another class discussion here. So Facebook and the age of privacy, you just talked about it, a second ago. So why are social networks interested in collecting user information? What types of privacy invasion are described in this, in the case? Which is the most privacy invading and why? How is e-commerce different from traditional markets with respect to privacy? Don't merchants always want to know their customers? And then how do you protect your privacy online? So, just kind of answer the first question there. So when it comes to data mining, a lot of these social networks are kind of going through seeing, what are you, tweeting about? What are you posting about? What are you liking? What are you following on these social media websites? Is there certain brands that you like? Are you talking badly about them? They're combing through all of that data and then selling that data off to these marketers and advertisers. And then, these marketing advertisers, very smart companies, they're going through and kind of figuring out, what is the public perception, of this company, and then how can we change it? So that's, it's no surprise that, and it's not just social networks like I was talking about a little bit ago. Whenever you're, searching online, maybe you're searching for like a new computer or like a new television or something like that. So you're checking out BestBuy.com, you're checking out Amazon, you're checking out Walmart, you're checking out all these different websites. Well, then you start to see, different ads on, ESPN.com for television, or you're starting to see things on your Facebook pop up for, TVs in your area and different types of specials that different companies are running. That's not by accident. It's thanks to that data mining that these companies are going in. They're looking at your data, they're selling it off to marketers, and then these marketers know exactly where you are, what you're looking for, and then they're able to kind of get those advertisements out to you. So as far as privacy invasion goes, yeah, I don't have a whole lot of issues with it just because I know that's kind of how the world is working right now. But at the same time, I don't want a lot of my personal information out there. I don't want obviously my birth date out there. I don't want my social security out there just because that's how you get your information stolen, and then that can be out there, kind of on the deep web, and sold to different people. And then as far as how do you protect your privacy online? So I just try to limit some of the things that I do online. Within the last, I'm trying to think, it's probably been 6 or 8 months now. I got rid of Facebook. It was just one of those things. There was just a lot of negativity out there on Facebook. It was right after the initial kind of news that their data breach had happened, and I had just had enough of it. I mean, I wasn't getting any sort of personal benefit out of Facebook. My wife, she currently has Facebook, so if we do have family that is wanting to stay in touch, they can always reach out to my wife. But yeah, for the most part, I just keep in touch with my close family and my close friends, through text. And phone calls, call me old school in that fashion. But I still utilize some social media. I do go out there on Reddit. Kind of the cool thing about Reddit is they don't know exactly who I am. They might be able to get into kind of my web browsing history, but at the same time, I mean, they don't know necessarily who Brent Mason is. They just know a username at that point. And then, yeah, no, I do use Snapchat. That's one of those things where I'm starting to use it less and less. Just because I don't know, it was one of those things I kind of got in college, and then as we've kind of grown up, I do find it to be a good tool to kind of stay in touch with some of my friends from college. But that's pretty much kind of the only reason that I use that. So be interested just kind of see what everybody else's kind of outlook is on some of these social media sites. What are you doing for your privacy? Do you like Facebook? Do you like Snapchat? Do you like Instagram? Have you thought about getting away from it? I'll be the first one to say that I got rid of Facebook. First, I would say probably month, it was kind of difficult because it's one of those things you get into every day, and I mean, it's just become a part of your daily routine. And then, after I quit, I mean, that first month, I'm not going to say I had withdrawals. It was just weird where I wasn't getting up first thing in the morning. I wasn't checking my Facebook, and I was just like, oh, I kind of have extra time on my hands. And then, after that first month, it just kind of became an afterthought where I was just like, I'm kind of glad I got rid of it. I don't need it in my life. It wasn't necessarily providing me any happiness in my life, and it's been a great decision for me. So be interested to see if anybody else kind of has the same thoughts, views on it. Post it in discussion. Email me if you want to about it. But yeah, definitely be interested in hearing what you got to say about it. So some of the academic disciplines concerned with technology. So e-commerce and technology is something that you're interested in. We've kind of talked about in the first portion of this chapter, where if you're interested in computer science and you're interested in business, e-commerce is a great field to get into. So as far as the technical side goes, computer science, management science, information systems. Those are all going to be good, technical courses and technical degrees to get into. And as far as behavioral part of it goes, information systems research, economics, marketing, management, finance, accounting, sociology. Sociology and psychology play a huge factor into e-commerce, especially when it comes to like data mining, just trying to figure out exactly, what people want and why do they want it. So that definitely plays a role with marketing as well. And marketing is just kind of one of those things where it's part business degree and it's also part psychology degree. So if you're interested in psychology, interested in business, I think marketing is a great field for you to get into. So lots of opportunities in e-commerce. It's a growing field still, even after these last 10 to 20 years here, where we've seen so much success in it. So some of the careers in e-commerce, you've got a category specialist in e-commerce retail program. Some of the qualification and skills we've kind of talked about here in this chapter. But definitely if you have a degree, like in a computer science or like a business degree with maybe like a minor in management information, those are definitely going to look good when going into those e-commerce fields. I would say a skill set, if you're able to write code, that's definitely going to be, a benefit, but you don't necessarily have to be a computer programmer to go into e-commerce. You just kind of have to have a general kind of good knowledge and understanding of business and of, technology systems. As far as preparing for the interview, there can be a wide variety of interview questions asked, so I'm not necessarily going to get into that. I would say anytime you go into any sort of interview, try to do a lot of research about the company that you're interviewing with. Find out exactly, what are they selling, why are they selling it, what kind of department are you going to be getting into. All of these are going to be good things, and I always try to come up with at least 5 to 10 questions to ask the interviewer whenever I go into interviews. So that's just good advice to have, not just for an e-commerce field, but any sort of job and field that you might again get into. So that's all I've got for chapter 1. We will see you next time in chapter 2.